Thank you for joining us this evening for this Disrupting Pattern Talk. I'm Andrea Desiato. I'm the program leader of the Master in Interaction Design and Master in Service Design. And as most of you know, the Disrupting Pattern Talk series are a multidisciplinary and innovation-oriented open lectures that deal with various topics related to design, deepening them with the desire for research, contemporary process, and future themes. And I would like to give a warm welcome to our guest, Tim Fu. Tim is a renewed architectural design and will give a lecture about AI and the prompting of machine creativity. Tim is emerging from Zaha Hadid Architects. He has founded the studio Tim Fu, which is a high-tech design practices pioneering the integration of AI into visionary design. He has also an extensive experience as an educator, running workshops and lectures in various universities and conferences globally. He is leveraging digital platforms, so Tim has built also a notable online presence, sharing insights into the overlap of technology and design. His AI explorations have been featured worldwide and is being exhibited during the Venice Biennale too. So I want to thank you, Tim, for being with us, and I leave the word to you.
Hi, Andrea. Great. Thanks so much for this amazing introduction. I will just commence. Thank you, everyone, for this amazing invitation. I'm very excited here to share what I have. So let me just go ahead and share the screen. All right. So AI and the prompting of machine creativity. So prior to all the AI stuff, I'm just going to brief a bit about the things that I do professionally. And it's not just AI, it's parametric design, it's algorithmic design, it's everything associated with using high-tech technology with mathematics and algorithms to produce complex geometries. So starting off from my career, I've worked a lot with complexities involving utilizing algorithms for generative architecture and building projects around the world, including Dubai. Had a project where I utilized this type of computational strategy for optimizing structure. And these things tend to be complex in geometry, so you have to use a lot of these advanced techniques in order to realize and calculate these things to reality. And this was a project where I worked as project lead. And then afterwards, eventually that got me into Zaha Hadid Architects. So as you all know, Zaha Hadid is a industry leader in the sort of advanced computational technology associated with soft morphologies that you would find in construction and buildings. So I was in the facade design team where I was involved in a computational process of realizing a lot of these geometries for the ease of fabrication and feasibility. So a lot of this involves a high amount degree of calculations and computational processes already. And so with all this sort of background, including realizing the projects in real life, it's a nuanced amount of these kind of expertise, I guess, in a way, where these type of processes started to transfer into potentially today's world where we have AI. And how did I start with AI? Pretty much a little more than a year ago, very short time ago. Midjourney version 3 came out around July, and last year I started seeing images popping out on social media that tagged designed by Zaha Hadid. So you feature these very conceptual images created by the AI. Sorry. And then from there on, I started to wonder what these things were. And I was really curious and excited about the fact that AI and computers can produce visuals and can inform some sort of design decisions. So I started to involve myself with AI and trying to figure out how I can do this process as well, utilizing the ethos and the ideas that we have in the firm Zaha Hadid, as well as some of my own intuitions. So I started to explore around last year. And beginning, it was very exploratory, very abstract. I just wanted to test the deep end of what it's capable of. And of course, it's very conceptual, very artistic, and nothing is refined. And I figured that was kind of like the bias, the behavior of the AI. So eventually, I really wanted to create something that is potentially buildable and actually understand things in a more construction process kind of way. So I changed my direction of exploring AI, and I started to really find ways to control the AI to produce ideas and concepts that are potentially buildable. So that was the start of my journey in which I started to explore AI from a practical perspective. And from here on, I started to collate all of these designs as almost as individual edifices of creations and expressions, both seemingly somewhat buildable as well as expressive in its own merit. And so I created these sets and I started to gather them on social media, like on my Instagram. And from here on, this process kind of took a life of its own, where I posted a lot of my works online, and then that somehow found its way to mainstream social media. So the goal that I had from this point on to today stayed the same, where I really wanted to realize, produce projects that are feasible with AI. And so with these techniques, I started to actually note it down. I started to understand the behavior, jot it down, and actually create systems of control. And this is when I started teaching, uh, primarily using Midjourney as a way of producing these ideas. So with Midjourney, uh, we started to break down the process of the human control that is actually involved in simply typing a text, because you first have the prompt crafting process where you have to explore the way you write the text, how you write the text, which text to write, and your overall idea that made you want to write the text. All of these are human inputs in which everything that you do will affect the output. So it became a really refined process of almost like alchemy, where if you change a text slightly to something else, the results will change. So how you change those texts as you progress in the prompt crafting process is how it's going to create your results in the end. And same with the iterative process. I will explain that in a little more detail. But generally, you have a list of text. It's very simple. For the uninitiated, you would type it in and expect the results. But from what I teach my students in these courses is to actually imagine what those images would give you first, for example, on Google image results. And then once you picture those image results as local clusters, I ask them to continue imagining its combination and so forth until it gets to the final result you want in your head. So this entire process of prompt crafting is already utilizing a lot of this creativity for you before you write down the text. Because with this method, you're able to really have much better control of what you want to output. And then, that was last year, Midjourney version 3. Gradually, DALL-E 2 came out. The other versions of Midjourney as well started to improve over time. And so is my skill sets by utilizing this technology improved over time by developing these methods. So last year, this was the results of my goal. Now my goal remains the same, but my skills as well as the technology itself became better. And today we have this. Now that's a big jump in 1 year. And interestingly, all of the underlying concepts that I try to develop stayed the same. But it's a testament to see how much the technology has really improved in just 1 year. And I'm sure it's going to continue much more beyond this point as well. So with these type of things, I develop exterior concepts. I develop interior concepts that matches the exterior concepts in ways that we can potentially create design language, construction, and exploration of materials and lighting and tone, all of which can inform the way you design as a process. But again, it's focused towards realism. So just to break down in this architecture concept design perspective, we start off with a lot of exploratory endeavors with prompt crafting, typing in all of these texts, multiple methods, multiple ways. And with each text, you test it about 10, 15 times just to understand the behavior of this set of text. Because the moment you change the text slightly, you add something, you subtract something, it's going to alternate its behavior. So in order to understand much better, I also have to produce a lot of results for each set of text so that I understand its behavior and then improve those texts. So obviously from here on, we optimize the text until we get to the image that we like or something similar. And from here on, we're not done. We continue the process of improving. For example, once we find the image that we think has a good tone and atmosphere and certain design aesthetics, we continue to vary it. We continue to evolve it. And this is where you have a lot of this curation process going on. You could decide to vary it strongly to follow the general feeling of the architecture, but produce radical results. Or you can vary it subtly, which means keeping the morphologies the same and then just exploring, fine-tuning the aspects of it until it gets better. So all of these methods are at your disposal, tools for your arsenal as you explore. And furthermore, there are now more things developed for better control. For example, when you have an image, a design, you could actually select individual locations. For example, this generation that I've chosen here, I can vary it multiple times in various styles, and then I will be able to pick the best versions of each area, and then finally get the results that I want on the very right. So it becomes a bit of a fine-tuning thing as well. And this is kind of similar to certain design process we have in typical architecture, where if you have a certain railing type that you want to explore, you allow the AI to do it multiple times. If you have a certain type of stairs or windows, and you can also just let the image produce tons of results for you to explore the possibilities. So this is very in tune with what we do as a standard design process already. But in this case, it's generative, so it's incredibly fast, and we're able to get a lot of ideas very quickly. So the gist of this whole process we can see in this one picture. It is something that you do in order to improve the design. So on the very left is a set of images using the text that we started out as. And on the right is going through the process that I have addressed, including the configuring of the text prompts, including the evolution of the design process, the curation, and finally the fine-tuning elements and fixing of the details, all of which are this whole AI design process. So we had the same goal in mind and it's same text, but now we can see the act of that human intervention to drive the AI towards your design will change the result quite a lot. Otherwise, you get quite a lot of these typical forms you would get, for example, out of Midjourney, which is typically, I will call this like a lazy beginning, but like everything else, you have all the tools you have for design. You could just use it and do something quickly, or you could put your own human artistry into it and struggle with this technology a bit until you can elevate it through your own design thinking. So this, I think, is a bit of a idea of how it's a human element despite being an AI tool. And so because there's so much involved in the text prompting process, as well as the all the nuances of controlling the algorithm of the AI to do what you want, I also have a course that I teach every 1 or 2 months at the Parametric Architecture Academy. And this process is incredibly long. I have a 2-day course teaching this thing full time, and that's why it requires such a curriculum in order to at least cover the basics. Because in reality, once you get into it, it's you realize this technology has a lot of things that you do have to address. So in very much the same way as people would compare to a camera, it is very easy for you to understand how to click the camera and take a photo. But, very much the same way, a photography class can teach you about all the nuances of how to control every single element of the camera as well as your output. And these are the sort of things that we have in parallel for artificial intelligence as a design process as well. So in many ways, I think it's very similar. And for the people that have started using AI already, especially, they are already aware of the struggles of controlling the AI and of producing quality results. And furthermore, of incorporating your personal artistry. So for example, here is a group of work that is collected from my students from one of the years. And I've given them a task to create a honeycomb structure exterior architecture. It's a facade that's made out of metal, steel, and glass. And it's a mixed use of urban context featuring residential as well as offices. And just by these similar prompts, you can see the results that the students each have is quite different. And I think this image itself alone showcases the nuances of using this technology, because among a group of 100 students, you can see a myriad of ideas and concept, but as well as certain students having very keen artistic eyes that some other students won't have. And so when I see an image like this that is full of AI generated images, I actually see the concept of the students that are trying to produce these images and their relative different degrees of success to it. So in many ways, this image for me showcases the human aspects of AI when I look at this. So at some point, I really wanted to incorporate more human control into the utilization of AI. I think there's a lot of ideas that we can do while generating things procedurally and generatively. But at the same time, there's certain times where you, as a creator and designer, want more control. So I started with sketches. And with these sketches, once you input that into the AI, you start prompting find results that you want as an output. You continue to evolve it until finally you get something potentially like a quality, industry quality render from this images of the sketch that you put. So this is an interesting process because now with the ability to take, multimodal inputs like images, we are re-inviting various versions and various method of medium of design in the process of using AI. So it could be text, it could be images, and it could be a plethora of other things, which I will showcase. But the idea is that we're now flexible, and this is all within possibility. So something very interesting to really think about. And then, of course, we have utilizing simple models. If you want a simple model like this, you either build it, you design it, and then you allow the AI to then reimagine something much more complex. Here, I just inputted something Zaha Hadid related, and you can see how certain of these language of Zaha Hadid really does start to showcase from the base model that I've inputted. So I think this process is very interesting, and it does give a lot of alternate results. And of course, also floor plans. Not just hand sketch floor plans like this one, but eventually AutoCAD floor plans, things that you draft on the computer, or things that come out of a 3D model. Potentially all these things can also just be inputted and allow something to come out. So of course, this doesn't make much sense at the moment if you actually look at it in detail. But the idea is that it's possible. And eventually, once the AI understands your controls more and more, like all your inputs, if you're able to say that I want this particular room as the bedroom and this room as a timber tiles with masonry, you're able to eventually have more control as you as AI develops, and as we have better tools to do this type of work. So I think in the future, we'll very soon see a lot of these type of things just being automatically outputted as a process. And so with this technique, I've also started to explore, getting inspirations from forms in nature. So nature, there's a lot of interesting forms. For example, here, the pine cone, I've taken this image back into a program called LookX, which is another program that utilizes image inputs. And then it generates an output that is an architectural idea. So in many ways, it's very interesting to now open the door to other inspirations of morphologies of things around you. Either you're a product or fashion designer, you can start to incorporate things that you find in nature, in other places, in rock formations. Anything is possible. You just take it in and you allow the AI to reimagine the materiality, the tectonic, and the expression. So these are all potentially now things to explore. And so with that door open, it also kind of allows us to play around with the concept of how to really start an idea. One man's trash is another man's treasure. If we actually have, like a crumbled up piece of paper, you just put that right in the AI and you prompt Frank Gehry architecture, for example, you really just can change a piece of junk or like a crumpled piece of paper into architecture if you really allow the AI to like find the solution for you. And you can do that with any input as well as any output. So here I've explored that same piece of crumpled paper using Frank Gehry style paper model, and then Zaha Hadid style, followed by Daniel Libeskind style. And you can see that the AI does in fact already capture a lot of the design elements that are known from these particular architects. So we can see that there's a level of that representation that we do if we prompt, especially famous architects or designers, and their styles is something that is then transferred. It's captured from existing images, but then transported into something completely new. And so, of course, from an industry perspective, this is where it can get incredibly powerful very soon. Right now, we're only looking at a very rough version of this technology, but we know already that as we allow this technology to continue progress, we're able to model these ideas in 3D and allow the output of photorealistic renders happen simultaneously. And it's more than just a productivity improvement. I think this tool fundamentally allows us to change the way we think about design, because now we're able to simultaneously let the output reinform our design process. And we allow this to synthesize much more effectively. So if you open up a public space, if you close up something, you set the sun angle and realize you created a dark spot, you don't want that. And all these things can happen simultaneously as you're pushing and pulling on a massing of a geometry. So that really helps us inform our design decisions as we go along. And this happens to a much more rapid pace. So AI in this sense is great for really expediting the process of design and allowing us to make better and clearer decisions. And of course, this type of things for me, I also try to pair it with my typical specialization, which is parametric modeling. And if we're able to, I mean, this is only a very early version, but the idea is we're able to really explore the morphological changes, how these units adapt to the spatial requirements and unit requirements of a project, how we can push and pull to open up certain views, and finally allow us to see the final results, as well as the shadows it casts on the neighboring buildings, as well as the finished materiality under the sun. If all of these things are all kind of synthesized together, it really allows us to quickly make these decisions as well. So it's really interesting to see this pairing of algorithmic parametric design along with AI. And another way for me is exploring AI morphologically and creatively. And so in this case, parametric design, such as when you see here, like timber pavilions, you can see the nature of the AI being able to really generate these results that are really seemingly parametric. And there's a really interesting tie between parametric aesthetics as well as AI, because if we really boil it down, parametric and algorithmic design are designs that tries to showcase a certain elegance of complexity, but underlaying the complexity is everything that follows a certain rule and order. So, for example, the shapes that we see are all algorithmically generated, and it can be done so through traditional parametric design, and is right now done through AI. And that's because AI has ability to understand the a lot of the underlaying image and pixel patterns, especially ones that our eyes can't pick up readily like they're able to. So the AI is able to really understand pixels in the sense of patterns, and it's able to do so at such a large scale and overlayer each other. So that's why that matches really well with parametric design, because our eyes see these relationships of geometry, of complexity, and it's all tied together. And so therefore the AI works really well with parametric design in this sense. So that type of thing is something I like to explore a lot. And here's like one of the earlier images that I've done where I try to model it in 3D. So because you have AI that has a certain level of understanding of parametric design, but sometimes there's a certain level of fudging it. There's a certain level of also fuzziness of not understanding things in detail. So this is where we try to deploy our own understanding of the geometry and further explore these processes. So with this particular things, for example, I would take like an AI image. I would first model kind of like the backbone, and then produce the grid patterns that I believe that the patterns are based off of. And from there, you generate like interweaving patterns with these algorithms. And this is all a very quick procedural process. And you're able to really quickly weave, for example, the timber, and allows us to create, by using parametric design, a result very similar to the AI images. So a lot of these process does take into the human aspect of interpreting it manually. And this manual process requires us to understand not just the architecture in 3D, but also how these things come to be, like the underlying algorithms that we can write in order to come to the results that we have as a final manifestation of these mathematical rules. So beyond that, I've also explored a lot of different styles and zeitgeists. And for me, I think one of the defining elements of my particular design field is the future era styles that I try to incorporate in my designs. I want to try to allow AI to picture us a better future that is associated with an aesthetics of clean, futuristic style. Like, for example, these ones here are interiors. And sometimes further push the curvilinear languages that I've adapted through my course at Zaha Hadid Architects, and furthermore my own studio, where we try to understand how these morphologies play into not just the formation of spaces, but a bit of like the cultural background, or like the the mood and the tone and the emotions that a space can set from a designer to the user. So I think it conveys more than just the form. These AI images can also convey that particular emotions that you're trying to really instill. And this process really does require you to think in multiple levels as well. And so, like, here's an example of one of the designs that I really try to push it towards constructability. And this is where I tell a lot of people to focus on like the architectonics of the project. With a lot of forms that are, organic and geometric, it's not just about drawing crazy curves and just letting things be the way they are. I think a lot of the times it's about finessing your curves to be all intentional. So like one of the very first thing I tell students, especially ones who really like to do Zaha Hadid looking architecture and designs, is I tell them that it's not just about producing the curves. Like every single curve you introduce should have a purpose and they should not be random. So in this case, it's about, for example, creating modularity. There's a certain degree of control where you're able to actually build the architecture and, real life architecture, especially the ones we build in the office, require a lot of elements to be rationalized. And so that really saves money, costs, and time. And that's always required when we're trying to produce this type of geometries. We don't want to introduce complex curvature just for the sake of it. Either you do it intentionally and it's going to cost more, but keep that to be about like less than 30%. Everything else is buildable, straight, and linear. So these are kind of like some of the ideas that we always have in the back of our minds when we are trying to produce these AI images as designs. And we try to control it as we continue to progress. And so here, for example, is another one where it's a very brutal, simple idea by using, pour in place concrete. But again, I think this particular one, I'm showcasing the repeating elements of the semicircle, but as well like the fine control and the finesse you have on some of these results where you have filleted edges at 90 degrees, or you have a lot of straightness as well. So either perfect circle or straight. Like this particular one is trying to showcase that. I bet this is AI results, so it could also be better than this, obviously. I think as designers, we realize that when we're looking at our own designs through AI is that we always feel we can do better, and the AI is just here to catch up to what we have in our mind. And so if you're a good designer and an artist, I think for you, it's really about driving the AI and not the other way around. And you can see like the same building, we have interiors as well. And again, it's more than just about form, and it's more than just about the image. There's a sense of practicality. There's a sense of even nostalgia in the imagery. Certain elements that are hard to pinpoint, but potentially on an emotional level, there are certain things that we try to incorporate. But then at the same time, we have very recognizable zeitgeist in every image that we produce. And the beauty of AI is that it's really able to allow us to bring in place a lot of these already existing ideas we have in human culture, because AI is based off of its image database. And so we have to learn to use that to our advantage. If you want 60s, 70s, space age, futuristic architectural style included in today's architecture, then you can readily prompt those things. So I think it's the ability to also understand a bit of culture and allow yourself to be open to all the catalog of human culture and history in the past and to prompt them out in today's present. So another typical example of that is, for example, my infatuation with classical architecture. So, for example, here I incorporate and I bring into place Gothic architecture, and I also fuse that with today's futuristic style, including certain elements of Zaha Hadid's language and curvature. So when we do that, will readily allow us to bring forward a lot of things already done in the past. For example, here is Renaissance interiors, a lot of traditional styles, a lot of things that we could then reinvent, reinvigorate, and reimagine in today's context, and potentially create this new era of fusion of designs. And because we have so many things in our historical past, it's really limitless. From yesterday's things to today's things, the infinite combinations that we can potentially create. So in regards to the actual constructability, this is where I try to break it down and see how we can start to approach these things. So with, for example, some of these future Renaissance interiors, I started by breaking it down to constructible elements, architectural components. So here I chose the column capital, which is already an architectural feature that is normally incredibly flourished, incredibly ornate. In traditional Doric or Corinthian columns, you would see this part being the visual expression. So I reimagined that with AI, with the futuristic fluid style, and we produced some of the results here. And from here, I consulted with a stonemason to find one design that is something we can actually build and we can finesse a bit. So once this is chosen, I've actually modeled this thing in 3D. And this is part where I rationalize as well. Once I rationalize and model this in 3D, then we take the measurements, we do drawings, and then I would send these drawings out to a gentleman by the name of Till Apfel from Germany. And he is a stonemason that we work together in the collaboration. And what he's able to do is actually read the images that I produce in detail and actually produce incredibly accurate results that are also very fine detail and has a sense of human touch that machines cannot do at the moment when it comes to hand sculpting. So this particular project is one of the first thing in an architectural element to be brought to real life from the AI. And from AI images, it has then been introduced to, for example, during the Venice Biennale, we have seen a lot of attention, seeing how they like to see these type of things at least come to life. So I think it's very exciting to bring things from AI to reality very quickly. And so in that regards, I've also collaborated in multiple fronts. For example, some of you may recognize the company called Sprayground in this bag. As a very stylistic bag brand, and they approached me to do a collaboration of a design. So one of my very first fashion and product related design, we interpreted the style of the traditional Sprayground bag, and I aim to incorporate that future energy and design and fluidity into the aesthetics. So here I produce a set of 3 items that are in some ways referencing their style of the motif that they had, but at the same time, also kind of like creating something a bit different as well. A very unique set where we did incorporate that futuristic vibe to their traditional motifs. So I think it's very interesting to just be able to prompt with words and images certain ideas and then produce seemingly finished products. And then the rest part is about how to you realize it. And so I also did a project with a Italian company called Mavi Mats, a furniture company, where we collaborated on this set of chairs. They had designed like these bowl chairs, and so we created like this little more parametric, or a little more elegant versions of it. And then as one of our final designs came out, we modeled in 3D, as we see the one on the left. And this particular design is then after it's modeled, we render it in real life type of style. And so in some ways, this kind of like going from AI to human render. But then now these products are in the assembly line and they can be produced. You can go to their website and already pre-purchase these things. So it's also one of my first AI related projects that is already in the assembly line and can be bought. So we can see how these AI design processes can work really rapidly in today's industry. And so that's why I recognize the urgency of needing to start my own studio, which I call Studio Tim Fu. And in this studio, what I wanted to focus on is the architectural and design process and trying to incorporate as much AI as practically possible. For example, from concept explorations, which I've already showcased, to AI rendering, and eventually to AI being able to control BIM conversions, building information modeling. So that is, for those of you who don't know, it's, understanding the actual design construction of a particular idea, of being able to catalog and give you different either doors or materials and all those details. So for example, today's world, we have large language models that are already somewhat capable of some of these processes. As they develop, the AI will be able to control this process. And then it will give us things like generative detailing. And eventually AI will pump out, construction documentation readily for us and readily potentially translated to any country that you're designing for if they don't speak the language that you're using in the first place. So I think it's all about streamlining the whole entire workflow with AI, going from concept design to construction. What we can do with technologies is link all these gaps together, because traditional to our industry right now, we partition every one of these processes separately, and we have a team of human specialists that are just taking ownership of this partition. So I think the power of AI is being able to streamline a lot of these processes, potentially in the process eliminating some of the human inputs necessary, but at the same time creating other roles for humans to take instead. For example, the control of AI and the inspection and the guidance of AI in this whole process. So furthermore, with just images, we have video AI, for example, like Runway ML, which is a program that will take your images and just generate videos with it. So I started using that to actually generate interior walkthroughs just by using AI generated images to create AI generated videos. And this is great because it starts to give us some idea of the spatial quality as we see these things, so that it's more than just images. And of course, here it is. I explored it with the last building that I showcased. I think it's very interesting to be able to see how the AI is really able to do these type of things so quickly. I mean, every one of these images took a few seconds, and every one of these videos took a few seconds. So it's just very, very inspiring to see the technology already at this stage. And from last year to today, that jump has been incredible. And since I'm on this whole process the whole time from last year to now, I kind of got to experience firsthand the gradual improvements. And to me, it's about looking up at the news every 2 weeks to see whatever new update is available and exploring it and trying to push it to the limits of what you can do with it. So it's an incredibly powerful process with AI. And for me, I've also wanted to explore other aspects of using AI more broadly, not just diffusion AI, which just deals with pixels. For example, here is utilizing this thing in architecture we call evolutionary algorithm, which is a type of umbrella. In the umbrella term of AI, it includes generative algorithm like evolutionary algorithm like this, where we, for example, produce an architectural strategy that calculates then its resultant, and it calculates the square footage of the units. It calculates the sun angle and how much solar exposure is in this courtyard, for example, as well as the views, the available views that are not blocked from the neighbors. So, for example, all of these are parameters we want to optimize. If I want to maximize the solar exposure of the courtyard, then that's something I will tell the AI. So this particular version, the evolutionary algorithm, is trying to maximize the basically the radiation levels of the courtyard, and is trying to maximize the views, and then also not try to minimize the GFA, which is the area of the units. So there are conflicting parameters, and we're able to produce multiple optimized results based on this process, because through evolution, it chooses a lot of these options, and then it gives you better ones, and it continues to evolve through this process. And then I tie this process to AI, like to diffusion AI. So in some interesting ways, we're able to actually see this thing interact on site, how it's able to just take blocks as architecture and then give you this seemingly photorealistic results, while I prompted this colorful architectural style to liven it up a bit. This style is carried over from solution to solution, in matters of seconds, multiple solutions per second. And so there's some ways we can see that it can be very powerful as these processes start to interconnect. If we're able to really see one AI control and maximize its all these parameters and produce architecture, while the other AI, diffusion AI, visualizes your results. And then once you, for example, lock on the massing that is optimized, then you can cycle through different materiality. You can cycle through different design styles. I mean, this is an urban scale kind of urban scale render, so it doesn't have the quality of the other AIs. But as the technology improves, you can see it could be incredibly powerful where I'm able to just cycle through different design styles just by providing massing. And if you do that to such a rapid pace, then for you as a designer, then you're able to then explore more possibilities and then produce the best results visually and functionally. So I think for AI, what I'm also trying to get at is that it's not just visuals that we're optimizing for. It is programming, it is architecture, it is optimization of spaces, of lighting, of ecological concerns, all of which, if you are able to program into this design process, then AI can have an input on. So finally, to conclude, we can see that the AI, there's multitude of ways we can utilize AI, going from detailing to visuals to creation of ideas to optimization of spaces and architecture. And we're at a turning point, I believe, in history where we're seeing the beginnings of what AI can do only. Just judging from last year's progress to today's progress, I see that we are at the cusp of the nascence of this technology. And I do believe that it's going to become a lot more powerful as we continue to progress. So I think at this point, AI is not something that you could just talk about and get into if you want to. I believe it is one of the few technologies that we have in human history that inevitably everybody will have to jump on eventually. It's like the rise of computers. When it came out, no matter what type of designer you are, what type of photographer or whatnot, in the end, everybody will use computers to process your results. And then when the internet came, everybody will use the internet. So I think AI stands at a point where it's not an option. It's something that will benefit the people that use it so much that the people that don't benefit will be required and incentivized to use it. So I think this is a very exciting time to be alive, and I'm just excited to see where AI will take us in the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for your time, for sharing your knowledge and your journey also, going from parametric design to generative. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Maybe we will see you again. So we have other questions. So you will answer more questions next time.
Yeah, definitely. It's really appreciate this opportunity. Thanks a lot, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.